Hey everyone, welcome to a new video. Today we're going to be looking at 9.18 and we're going to see what are the best champions, at least in my opinion, some top tier ones, and then we'll go into more depth and have kind of like mini guides for 4 of those. There'll be timestamps to the roles and a list of the champions in the description below, and as usual the builds will be in the actual video itself. Before we start, a lot of you will know this already, but Icon and Club have merged together now and they brought with it the highlights, like this glorious 2-item Nasus play one of you lot submitted to the club. They've also given me a million points to give out, so every week I'm going to be giving someone who plays 5 or more challenges enough points to get a 5,000 RP card. As you can see on screen, I've actually already used it once and it works perfectly, and I use that to buy Infernal Varus. There is a link down below to join my club. You run it in the background of games, you pick up challenges just before them, you play like normal, do nothing differently, but you earn points and you use those points for free RP. That's literally it. So starting with AD carries then, for our top tier, we're going to look at Jinx, Ashe, Lucian, Kai'Sa, Xayah, Jhin, Caitlyn, and Vayne. This is one lane that has actually shifted around quite a lot. So for our number 1 spot, I actually think it's going to be Caitlyn. She has had a ton of buffs recently leading up to this patch. Like the last patch was 2 AD, but a few patches before that was another 2. So it's actually 4, and that's actually a fair bit for AD carries when they auto attack all the time. There are lots of other things as well, like her ultimate is so much better, but she's just extremely good in the lane phase. She can push really hard, poke well as well with the range advantage, and get a ton of control in place. Being so safe and having such high range honestly really helps, and you can carry late game as well with your damage. Honestly, I feel like there is no reason not to pick her right now because she's going to be good in every single game. Our second spot was also buffed in the same way for this patch, so Jhin got 2 more AD. He's had quite a few others though, so before that his W roots for longer, and before that his traps were made better. Both Fleet Footwork and Dark Harvest work at the moment for your keystone, so Fleet Footwork is probably a little bit better by default in most matchups. Its insane utility and speed later into the game helps a little bit in lane, but Dark Harvest is just way more raw damage. He can be really strong early game if you have a good lane phase, especially a good support with him, but he has good range, a good trading, he can snowball out of control with just a couple of items, but he's very strong when he gets his crit and his AD items like his Infinity Edge and his Essence Reaver. For our third spot, if you're not getting slapped around by those 2 in the lane phase too hard, then Kai'Sa is probably going to be one of the best you can play. She's really good to scale with and outplay people in teamfights. You really need your 3-item point, but once you get past that, she kind of takes over the game really. You've got huge damage, a lot of it's burst as well, especially if you can isolate a target with your missiles, but then you have consistent damage afterwards, AP and AD. Even though she is short range, she is pretty safe as well because you have your stealth, you have your ultimate, which is a really good engage assassin tool, but actually a good peel tool as well. Plus you have access to stuff like Zhonya's, which most AD carriers just don't have. Last up, I want to mention Ashe. She can do really well against all of these others because of the range advantage and her slows, spamming out arrows and volleys basically entire game. The cooldown reduction build is probably just a little bit better at the moment, but Blade Throwing King is also really good. Essence Reaver first is like W spam, arrow spam, stuff like that, and Blade is more damage and healing from your auto attacks. Last time I played her, I was absolutely camped so hard bot lane, and that can be a problem. You can be nuked a little bit early, but she scales really well. She's good for team fights, got amazing setup, and she's really strong utility-wise. Moving into mid lane, we have had a couple of changes here as well. So we've got Ahri, Sylas, Ekko, Syndra, Fizz, Kassadin, Zoe, and Qiyana as our top tier. Obviously, champions like Ahri and Sylas and Syndra and whatever are really good right now. But if we ignore those and we put something else at number 1 spot, I think Ekko is actually really good. I think these buffs recently were pretty stupid. His W is a lower cost and it now stuns for 2.25 instead of 1.5 seconds. So he can throw this out more, and if it lands, probably kill someone. He still does really good damage in general anyway. He always has them, honestly. And his ultimate has a base cooldown of 50 seconds later, by the way, later into the game at rank 3 after some other buffs he had, so he can make some really risky plays and not really get punished. Our second spot is way more about the damage stuff. So Fizz is the best at lower ranks 100% right now. He can get out of control and he can farm champions like no other, and it's easier to do it. You really just press R. If it hits somebody, then you kill them. If not, you chill and you wait. But the real issue for everybody else is when you get to a point where you don't need your ultimate anymore to kill someone, that is when he goes to like another level. The damage is why you pick him. He does an insane amount, and for an assassin as well, he actually scales pretty well. He's hyper mobile, so he's really slippery and you can't really lock him down, which is one really good point. But his damage also doesn't really fall off. Third spot is a bit different. So Kassadin is the most brain dead mid laner if you get ahead. I'm a little bit salty as an AD carry player, but you need 3 items, right? And then after that, it's like game over. You run double scaling again now, so Archangels and Rod of Ages. It makes the early game a little bit easier, I guess, because you don't have to worry too much. And once those are online, it's really hard to shut him down. He's relatively tanky, but he's got a lot of burst. The reason we're seeing more of him at the moment is because his W is buffed. It gives 30 more damage a few patches ago, so it massively helps in melee matchups to fight them, especially in trade. trade, but also just all-ins after level 6 when you dive in. Last up was another buff. Zoe was buffed last patch as well, giving more damage on her passive after each spell is cast. It's really good for abusing laners, especially melee ones actually as well, and according to most Zoe players, has added a good amount of damage that they really needed. Zoe relies on getting ahead more than most other champions, but if she can do, then she can fire at her bubbles, catch somebody, one-shot them, and kind of win the game without it ever really being a fair fight. Into our jungle picks for today, our top tier is going to be Sylas, Mundo, Kha'zix, Jarvan, Hecarim, Gragas, Vayne, and Elise. Kha'zix is still really good right now, so we're going to put him at number 1, and ideally you're just trying to get to 2-3 items, and then you can kind of outscale everything else that might be picked. He seems to do that more often at the moment, and that is kind of why he is number 1. He's actually still decent early game anyway, right? You can do good damage if fighting somebody alone, and his ganks aren't that terrible. One of the really good things for him at the moment is a lot of early game junglers have been nerfed, especially as a jungle in general, actually, which gives him more time and less hassles. We're definitely in more of a carry jungle meta anyway, and there aren't that many better than Kha'zix. Now saying that, this might seem a bit weird, but kind of the exception to that is Mundo, but actually I kind of think he carries anyway from being way too tanky, not dying, and still dealing a stupid amount of damage. It is way more of a Korean trend at the moment, but basically you get red smite and nobody can kill you from that point onwards. You run around, you smash everybody with your E, a bonus range, and AD, and you clear the jungle so fast for a tank. Eventually he probably will get nerfed because it's too easy to do this, honestly. He's like the easiest and the strongest jungler of the patch so far. If you don't want to play those and you want to play more early game, Jarvan is probably the best early game jungler at the moment, and maybe aside from Elise, but he's one of the few who hasn't been nerfed. He does consistently well, can gank harder, and snowball from it. Elise is a bit more risky, but Jarvan isn't really. His flag is actually going to give him way more assists, which is more gold, and then you have some decent damage, and you have some really good engage. He is always going to be useful. If you get behind, yeah, you're going to be really easy to kill, but at least you can start a fight for the rest of your team who hopefully are going to be strong, and if you get ahead, then you can do the damage, and you can kill people yourself. The last one I want to mention for junglers is kind of like a side one. So Hecarim is really good, I think, at the moment. A bit underrated, not played a ton, but he can do everything well. He has really good damage, even when building tank, which is pretty weird. I can run people down and actually kill people, so he doesn't have to rely on his team as much. I see a lot of Hecarims that are doing really well right now, and he's probably one of the best to kind of one trick at the moment. He's got really good engage, a good healing, and he can get tanky items to survive, so he's not just class cannon, but he can kind of adapt to the game. We're going to go into our top laners next, and our top tier is going to look like Pantheon, Jax, Renekton, Darius, Mordekaiser, Kled, Irelia, and Fiora. Not much has actually changed here, honestly. Pantheon is still way too strong early game. I think he's actually getting nerfed next patch, though. For now, though, he just rolls over almost every single lane. That's not really new for Pantheon, I guess, but the new part is that he's more tanky. He's harder to kill now, so even if you catch him, he can put up his E and survive a really long time in a fight. It makes dealing with him much harder because he uses his cooldowns and he presses his E, waits for his cooldowns to be back up again, and you kind of have to survive 2 rounds of it. Jax is also pretty nuts again now, and we had a small buff, but it shaved 2 seconds off his Q rank 1, which helps him fight or escape people in the lane phase just a little bit more. He still has this thing though of getting to 2 items, getting your Spear of Shojin, and it's the most difficult thing to play against. He does insane damage, hops around like mad, and his counter strike is on such a low cooldown. I think there's very little risk to picking Jax. He can win some lanes actually, especially if you outplay it, but then he will eventually outscale almost anybody else and win through pushing or just flat out team fighting. Those are kind of 2 extremes. We have really early game, really late game. Kind of in the middle is Renekton. He doesn't have the worst win rate against Jax because he can kind of get out of control in lane and not let him bounce back. I think he's one of the best for doing it. You can probably put that as well with Darius, I guess, but win lane, win game is the easiest way to have impact as a top laner. It is the same idea. Once you get your spear, you're going to be a really big problem. You get relatively tanky with that, a lot of health, but your damage is insanely high at that point, especially if you use your rage properly. Last up, just to mention, Mordekaiser is still doing really well if you can get him to outside of a lane phase. There's so many times I've seen him die a few times early only to just bounce back. The healing is really strong, but it's because he has that, shields as well, and he's still tanky anyway, so it's not easy to fight him at that point, at 2-3 items. If you miss your claw, it can be a little bit hard to get in and do stuff. At least you have his slow, I guess, but you can also get smashed in lane. But ignoring those parts, he's actually really good, high damage, and a pretty good frontline sort of. Last up, we're going to go into our supports, and this one actually hasn't changed. So top tier is going to be Nautilus, Leona, Janna, Nami, Thresh, Pyke, Morgana, and Rakan. The order has kind of changed though, because I think Pyke is way too good at the moment. His lane phase is killer, but the extra gold generation is insane from his ultimate. It means he snowballs even harder. He gets more gold for himself, and guess what, right? Riot also buffed how well he scales with lethality items, so he does even more damage. The damage side is really strong. The ultimate is insane, but he's super slippery with his W and his E, so it's very hard to lock him down and focus him, and even after bad trades, he's going to heal back up most of it and stay in lane. A lot of these are engaged. The only mage we really have against that is Janna. She's got a really strong mid game now with the chains to her shields, but she's one of the few who can kind of survive these like ultra kill lanes. Maybe not survive them in the lane phase too well, but after that, she's going to outscale, right? She keeps her whole team alive through that engage. You can also bully pretty hard in lane with a stronger AD, so if they don't have control, you spam out your W and Q to get picks pretty easily. You could probably argue that Leona deserves like the 1 or 2 spot, honestly, in this video. She's super tanky, she's got really good engage and damage, but she's had some really nice buffs recently. You get a bit more tanky with your W now, blocking a bit more damage, but her E cooldown goes down so low. You can basically spam it out in mid-game fights once you have it maxed out. We all know that her lane phase is really deadly, and she's really hard to kill actually anyway with Aftershock, but now she flies around fights with crowd control and causes so much disruption. Last up, just to mention, Nautilus is one of the few who can actually beat Pyke because he has so much crowd control and damage to lock him in place before he can run away. It's not hard to 1v1 the enemy AD either. He is very one-dimensional though. He doesn't really have much utility. He's relatively tanky, but that doesn't scale into mid-game very well like a Leona does. You really have to win your lane, but he is so good at doing it, so that's not really that much of a problem. Like, honestly, he's probably one of the best for just snowballing a lane since it's pretty easy to do it, and your AD barely has to follow up. Those are going to be my picks for 9.18. Let me know what you think down below. Make sure you go and join my Icon Club as well if you aren't already, or if you're already joined, make sure you start playing again. As I said, you have to play 5 games in a week, which is really easy to do. You can do that in one night, I guess, and you'll be entered to win that 5,000 RP card. Thanks for watching until the very end. I'll probably be streaming right now as well, I think, so if you want to come and watch that, there'll be a link down below. Thank you for watching until the very end, but for now, I will leave you with the robots.